Welcome to Lemon Live at 5. We prepared one hell of a show for you this evening, and I'm going to talk about a lot, okay? So I'm going to do it with one of my absolute favorite voices in the media, and I seriously mean that. I watch him all the time. This is Sam Seder. He's an actor, he's a commentator, he's a longtime host of The Majority Report. I'm sure you guys have watched it, millions of subscribers. But if you haven't, make sure you tune in. Sam, thank you. You and Emma, I watch you guys all the time. I'm a huge fan. As a matter of fact, I was literally watching the episode earlier, that you had with Ellie Mistal, and it's so nice to have you as my partner tonight. Thank you for joining us. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So here's what we're going to talk about with Sam and other things, because he'll go off and talk about whatever he wants to, and then I'll just probably end up following his lead. But we're going to talk about the breaking news concerning none other than Matt Gaetz. We're going to talk about the looming SCOTUS decisions, including presidential immunity. We're going to talk about the white boy summer phenomenon, the increasingly out and proud racists within the GOP. And then Benjamin Netanyahu is attacking Joe Biden this morning. And finally, we're going to discuss a very curious editorial in the Washington Post today calling on Joe Biden to swap Kamala Harris for Hillary Clinton. Is that?
I read it. I mean, I don't know if you want to start there, but
no. Where do you want to start? Would you rather start with Matt Gaetz or with that?
Let's either one. We'll get to both.
All right. Well, let's start with that. Let's go with the Harris and Clinton. So let's give him some context before we talk about it.
Sure.
Okay, Sam. So Washington Post columnist thinks that President Biden would ease concerns about his advanced age by kicking the Vice President Kamala Harris off the ticket, replacing her with Hillary Clinton. Kathleen Parker is the writer. She's a Pulitzer Prize winning columnist. Do you remember Parker Spitzer on
I was on that show quite a bit, actually. So I was just about to say she's a very nice person, but I don't think that piece is terribly coherent.
Yeah. Okay. She's an award-winning columnist. Anyway, that's what she talks about. She says, no one has mentioned her as a possible running mate for Biden, as far as I know, but why not replace Harris with Clinton? Parker wrote in her most recent column. What do you think about that?
I mean, I have a lot of thoughts, and I'm trying not to get flooded by all of them simultaneously. I mean, first off, there's really no evidence that a different vice president would help Joe Biden at this point. I think, Joe Biden's got problems because of Joe Biden. But if the theory is that he's too old, and therefore you need to have a vice president that people like, I can't imagine Hillary Clinton would be on the top of that list. I mean, aside from it being, I think, her just sort of brushing away the fact that replacing the vice president may have some pitfalls in and of itself. The big problem is that Hillary Clinton lost to Donald Trump. B, there's absolutely zero evidence that she's more popular now than she was then. I would suspect actually less so.
You don't think there's a certain element in it that, Hillary Clinton was right because look where we are, and perhaps I think she writes that in if Hillary Clinton was, if she was the president, right, then we wouldn't be facing this situation. I think she sort of says that in her column.
Oh, I think that's true. But what she doesn't add is if Hillary Clinton hadn't lost to Donald Trump, we wouldn't be in this situation. It's not like, I'm sorry, there was definitely, James Comey was a problem in that election, without a doubt. But there's about 6 or 7 other things that Hillary Clinton did as a candidate that also led to Donald Trump becoming the president. And so she has agency. It's not like Donald Trump was appointed by somebody to become president. And frankly, I don't think, in that piece, I don't know if it mentioned, I think, her interference in this congressional race with Jamal Bowman and Latimer. And frankly, this guy Latimer is running against Joe Biden's agenda of raising taxes on wealthy people. He's on the record for saying that. He's been race baiting. He has a problem as a Westchester superintendent. It hasn't gotten much report, but he hired his girlfriend. And I don't frankly care. He seems to have some type of arrangement with his wife. So I don't really care that it was his girlfriend as much as it was clearly a nepotistic hire gave her $150,000 county job. None of this has been out there. And he's getting like close to $17 million of outside Republican support in terms of dollars. The idea that she would jump in there, she is completely tone deaf to where I think the base of the party is, and the people who pay the most attention, I think they'd have a real problem with her. I don't even know if the idea in and of itself is good if you put in Whitmer or somebody else, but with Hillary Clinton, it's almost laughable that this got printed in a major newspaper.
Yeah, I was just saying, well, he hired his girlfriend. It's giving, as the kids say, Fonnie Willis vibes when he hired his girlfriend. But listen, you just mentioned that someone put it in a major newspaper. The Washington Post, Sam, is publishing this. Is there some sort of realization that you believe, or maybe it's just, Kathleen Parker, that Joe Biden is, hurting and that his chances of winning are slim to none, or slimmer than they thought, I should say?
Well, Kathleen Parker is a Republican. I mean,
Right.
She's been a Republican for a long time. So I don't think that, I don't, this is what we used to call concern trolling, right? Like, I don't quite, but I think, listen, I think a lot of people have known that Joe Biden is not the strongest candidate for a long time. A lot of people think that he is, not just, I think, sort of like numerically too old. I'm not terribly concerned about whether he's senile. I don't think that he is, frankly. I think the issue is more like he came in as a caretaker. I mean, he almost said this himself when he ran that first time around.
Yeah, he did want to run in 2016, remember? I mean, he said, I needed to.
And it was Hillary Clinton that he was pretty upset about in 2016. So the idea that he would, I mean, that idea is laughable. But I think, look, there's a 52% chance of him winning according to 538's sort of calculator, right? But there was a 95% chance of Hillary Clinton winning. So this is a toss-up without a doubt. And the real issue for me is, what is Joe Biden doing to help his campaign? And as far as I can tell, I think this immigration change in terms of, basically making it almost an extended DACA, but for folks who are married to a U.S. citizen, is good. But aside from that, I think he's really hurting himself with his position on Israel and Gaza. And as I've said on the show, I don't think it's a first order thing. I don't think the American public, and maybe this has been your experience too, it certainly was mine during the Iraq War, the American public rarely votes based upon foreign policy. Mm-hmm. However, in this instance, there was a story today in the Washington Post about the White House reaching out to the TikTok Gen Z generation. And they're having a problem because hundreds of TikTokers who had banded together in 2020 for something like TikTok for Biden changed their name and are now not endorsing Biden. And I think the problem with his Israel-Gaza policy is that it's alienating the people whose job it is to motivate voters. And we're seeing that in the polling on some level, I think.
So do those folks, I'm generalizing here, do they usually vote? Are the TikTokers actually going to go to the polls? Are there enough TikTokers out there to really make a difference?
I mean, it's not so much the commentators, but are there enough people who watch TikTok that vote? I mean, these are people who supported him in 2020. And, we're talking about 40,000 votes over the course of 3 states. It doesn't take many. These TikTokers combined probably have millions of audience members. And look, the Biden campaign is relying on essentially demographics to win this election. They are looking at the demographics in which they won in 2020. And they're saying, we won this cohort, all right? For instance, this cohort being 18 to 35 by whatever the points was, 20 points, 30 points. The number of people in that cohort has grown exponentially, while the cohort that Donald Trump won on the other age end has shrunken. And so the Biden campaign has calculated that they don't need to win as big in terms of a margin with that younger cohort. but they still need to win that cohort because there's more of them there.
Yeah.
But the problem is that like all of the mechanisms in which they reach those people, because it's low propensity voters who Biden has a problem with at this point. And the people who get low propensity voters to vote are high propensity voters, like the TikTok commentators.
Yeah. And the disengaged, the folks who are disengaged. And Donald Trump
Yeah.
is winning among the disengaged. But here's what the folks, 5 easy questions, and this is our show where we actually talk to our subscribers. We do like you guys, I reread some comments, but we're not fancy enough to have a call-in audience yet, Sam, so I'm just gonna read you some
That's
of the comments.
super fancy.
Yeah, like you guys do. 5 easy questions says, quit looking at polls. I don't know if you agree with that. Gino Menard says, I still love Hillary, but I'm not giving her the Kamala's, the black woman's job for no reason. I think you sort of said that. Let's see. I want to make sure that I get one. Replace with Michelle Obama, Jasmine Crockett, or my former colleague Laura Coates, it says. And then Chuck E. Cheese, I don't know where these names come from, says, I know Nate Silver keeps trying to rewrite it, but he was the one who said 99% in 2016. Here's the other scenario that people have been posing, that Joe Biden will relinquish his delegates at the convention. Is there a chance in hell that would happen?
I mean, there's a chance in hell that anything could happen, right? I mean, asteroid, I think it's.
You asked for an asteroid today on the show. You said
I was
with Ellie.
There's a couple of places, yes, I wouldn't mind an asteroid falling, frankly, but I think it's highly, highly unlikely. I think if Joe Biden was of the mind that he couldn't win, he would have stepped down earlier than now. I think the mentality of a lot of these politicians is. I think, as Ellie said today on the show, similar to some of the Supreme Court justices who aged out, is that Joe Biden seems to think that there is no one else who could do this job. And so I would be very surprised. And I'm not convinced that necessarily would, as much as I have issues with Joe Biden, I'm not convinced. I don't think it's a slam dunk to say that if he was replaced with, candidate X, that would be helpful. But maybe.
Yeah. One of the Heather Elliott says, Don, you're playing with the first poll question. Are you kidding? It is worded as if you were still on CNN. It should be. They're mad because I said, should Joe Biden replace Vice President Harris with Hillary Clinton in the poll that's up now? And a lot of you voted and you said, absolutely not. Are you kidding? Says 76%. Yes, 100%. Yes, 100% that he should be. He should replace is 13%. Now, I'm not sure is 11%. Look, I'm only posing the question because it was in the Washington Post. You can blame Kathleen Parker and not Don Lemon nor Sam Seder.
People should.
Yeah, people should. Okay. Okay. So let's get to our breaking news, all right? And we'll get some more viewer or subscriber comments. Again, thank you, Sam, from the Majority Report for appearing today. So this is what we were supposed to start with. We're supposed to start with what was happening with Matt Gaetz. Here's what's happening with Matt Gaetz. So the House Ethics Committee announced just hours ago that it's going to continue to review several allegations against Representative Matt Gaetz, who is a Republican from Florida, including that he engaged in sexual misconduct and illegal drug use. This is a bipartisan panel. It investigates ethics complaints, said that in a lengthy statement that it is also examining whether Gaetz accepted improper gifts, dispensed special privileges and favors to individual with whom he had a personal relationship, and sought to obstruct government investigations of his conduct. Now, Gaetz is, as we know, a top Donald Trump ally on Capitol Hill. He's denied all the allegations. So Sam just dropped out. We'll get Sam back. I'm wondering what Sam has to say about all of this, because something that the former Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, said at an event in Georgetown in April. We'll play that in a little bit when Sam gets back. So since we have this opportunity that Sam dropped out, I'm going to go to the comments and I'm going to read some of them for you. So I want to say chocolate, or chocolat, however you pronounce it. Thank you for supporting independent media. And you said, Don, I believe Trump and associates will take back the White House January 6th style. The GOP is planning and plotting in our faces. Dangerous times, my brother. Okay, dangerous times, especially because Sam dropped out. Sam,
Yeah,
can you
sorry
hear me?
about that.
That's
Yeah.
okay. It happens. Technical.
I don't know what happened. My browser just went.
I think it was Matt Gaetz.
Matt Gaetz.
Matt Gaetz
Well,
is not happy. Hey, so listen, I just want to play something, and then I'll get you to respond. This is
Okay.
a former House Speaker, Kevin McCarthy, during an event in Georgetown in April. This is what he had to say about Matt Gaetz. Watch this.
So was it this? You made a lot of concessions in the negotiations.
No, I didn't. Okay.
Okay, is that
Let's
the
get to the bottom of that.
Right?
That
No,
is such a misnomer in life. Let me give you the truth about that now. And I'll give you the truth why I'm not speaker. It's because one person, a member of Congress, wanted me to stop an ethics complaint because he slept with a 17-year-old. An ethics complaint that started before I ever became speaker, and that's illegal, and I'm not going to get in the middle. Did he do it or not? I don't know. But an ethics is looking at it. There's other people in jail because of it. And he wanted me to end.
So, okay, he didn't say allegedly. He said because he slept with a 17-year-old. And then he went back and said, well, I don't know if it happened or not. So what do you make? A lot to unpack here. It's lurid. What do you think?
Well, I mean, there's been first of all, I don't like Matt Gaetz. And I'm not going to lie, I enjoy seeing Republicans fight with each other. I think that's good for the country, frankly. And so I'm not going to lie about that. But I think, what is going on here is Gaetz was cleared by the Department of Justice on these charges. I don't think that they would have let him go if they had sufficient evidence. I think the bar for an ethics complaint is probably lower than criminality, so they could censure him. But I think I think what we're watching is definitely the Republican establishment disciplining their members. We saw McCarthy put money into primarying, his super PAC primaried Nancy Mace. I think and this is also, I think, part of McCarthy's, because the head of the ethics committee, the Republican, was appointed by McCarthy, a former ally of his. I think they are punishing Matt Gaetz. Like I say, with that said, it's part of party politics, and anything that can create dissension amongst Republican ranks, I am in favor of.
So speaking of that dissension, because it seems that Donald Trump has all but killed the phenomenon of the political scandal. I mean, at least for Republicans. You can say outrageous things, you can do outrageous things, and the MAGA base just doesn't care about it. I mean, think about all the Marjorie Taylor Greenes, about all of her behavior. Think about Lauren Boebert playing hanky-panky at the Beetlejuice play. Think about, how long George Santos kept his job after all the lies. I mean, I suspect the MAGA base probably won't bat an eye at this ethics probe, correct?
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And if anything, I would say that it's not just exclusive to what we call MAGA now. I mean, you remember Mark Sanford? I mean, this guy,
Was it the Oregon Trail? Is that what?
Yeah, I think it was the Appalachian Trail. But I mean, he was governor and he went completely AWOL. People forgetting that he was having an affair. He introduced his kids to his girlfriend that he left their mother for on stage at a political rally for the first time. I mean, this type of stuff has been excused by Republicans for a long time, I think. But yes, Donald Trump, basically gave up the ghost, and they no longer really had to pretend to be outraged by this. And so I don't think it hurts Gaetz politically, but I think it probably is inconvenient and something he has to deal with on a regular basis. And it's a harassment. But again, I think the more dissent amongst the Republicans, the better.
He is totally being persecuted, like Donald Trump. He's so put upon, that Matt Gaetz. Let's talk about SCOTUS, because I know it's near and dear to your heart. You had a really great conversation about it. And again, I cannot recommend the Majority Report enough, because they do really great in-depth. The whole idea of this for me is I'm a newbie, as you know. The reason I'm doing this is because
Well, not that much of a newbie.
for this particular
Yeah, I get
medium. Like, look, I just used to have to sit there. Let's just be honest, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, producers, what do you have for me? Now I'm like, what's a thumbnail going to look like, right? Should this be a live guest or a tape guest? So, I'm doing this because I think that folks should be informed, especially for this upcoming election. I can't tell you who to vote for, but I tell you to go vote. I'm telling you who I'm supporting because I think democracy is very important to me. I don't believe in everything that the Biden administration stands for, but at least we'll have an intact democracy on the other side of the Biden administration. So the reason I'm saying that is because that's what your show does. It informs people, and you do it with humor. And I think that's important because sometimes you sort of grease or ease the beach, flatten the beach a little for people to gain some understanding without being so, in their corners. So I want to talk about SCOTUS, all right, specifically presidential immunity. Sam, as I mentioned earlier, I watched you and Ellie this morning. Ellie is such a smart guy. Yeah. There's one portion of your conversation that I really want to play for my audience. Ellie was breaking down just how exactly the justices are so belligerently dragging their feet with this case. And it's not just pure politics, right? There's more to it. So let's listen and then we'll discuss.
Part of the 6 conservative justices. And I've tried to explain to people, it's beyond their desire to see Trump reelected is beyond just the normal partisan politics, or they're Republicans and they like Republicans. Understand, Clarence Thomas is old, right? He knows he's not going to be around forever. Samuel Alito, I mean, as much as we like to joke about Alito and the flag and his obviously cuckoo for Cocoa Puff's wife, one of the subtexts of these flag stories is how much they hate DC. And this has actually been underneath Alito's entire career. He hates DC. His wife hates DC. He doesn't actually like the job. He loves the power. He doesn't actually like the job, right? Alito is not a guy who wants to die in his chair in DC. He wants to be fishing with drug executives and going to Phillies games, right? Well, so for both Thomas and Alito, Trump winning is key to their life retirement plans.
Can you respond, Sam, to what Ellie said right there? I was essentially interested in what you mentioned this morning about Mrs. Alito and her recorded comments about having a 5-year plan of sorts.
Right. Well, first off, thank you for the kind comments. And I found Ellie was really interesting today on a couple of points around the immunity thing. But when recently Lauren Windsor, who does this kind of, some people take issue with it. I don't in any way. She went to a Supreme Court function, paid for the ticket, went under her name, went up to Alito himself and to his wife at different times as posing as a supporter and recording the conversation. And Martha Alito was talking about how she, Lauren Windsor had said, I'm so sorry that the media is out to get you, playing on the aggrievement that most Supreme Court justices apparently have, or at least this one does, and his wife. And she made a point. She's like, don't worry, I'm going to get the media. The statute of limitation on defamation is only 5 years. Now, aside from it almost being impossible to imagine she has a defamation case, or Sam Alito does, she's anticipating that something's going to change in her and her husband's status over the next 5 years that's going to allow her to do that case. Like, she's waiting for something. And there was another comment that she made that also indicated Alito is planning to retire and in waiting to do so in the Trump administration in the next 4 years, assuming Donald Trump wins. And I thought that was really astute because I think there's every reason to believe that at least those two are going to retire if Donald Trump is president, and you're going to end up getting I think people to the right of both of them, frankly, the difference is they'll be about 20 or 30 years younger. And they'll be on for another generation or two.
Yeah, they're playing the long game, and actually the smarter game here.
I mean, they have a level of coordination. Really, it's the Federalist Society, and over the past 20 years, I've watched the Democrats or the center left attempt to create a similar institution, and there's nothing like it. The Federalist Society is basically, you've got to join this club if you want to ever become a judge. It also helps you. It's like it's almost like, it's like, I guess, like the VFW Hall or like the Elks Club, but it is obviously different. It's just right-wing law students enter into the Federalist Society, and it becomes a career necessity. And Leonard Leo, who was one of the chief fundraisers of it, he's the one who basically marshaled and picked, with the Heritage Foundation, all of the nominees for Donald Trump. They'll have another list this time around. Leonard Leo is also the guy,
Clarence Thomas,
who introduced, when Clarence Thomas was going around, and there's been very good reporting about this in ProPublica, was going around telling anybody who would listen, I don't think I can stay as a Supreme Court justice because I need money. And if I'm not, I'm going to have to retire soon and make the money in the private sector. Leonard Leo immediately introduced him to Harlan Crow, this right-wing billionaire. They are now best friends. And to the extent that we know how much, I mean, there's every reason to believe that there's more. Clarence Thomas has received over $5 million worth of gifts from this guy, including a house for his mom, private school for his kid, every trip imaginable.
Crazy.
I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It really is crazy.
Sam, I think some in my audience may be under the impression that the court that they're merely just slow walking this case by saving it, from one of their final releases, or saving it for one of their final releases. But can you explain how it's actually much worse than that? How Jack Smith tried to petition the court to hear and fast track the matter of presidential immunity. He did it back in December, right? And they said no. Is it fair to call this election interference?
I mean, look, we have seen multiple instances where the Supreme Court turned around a question like this in terms of that had to do with elections as soon as possible, like within days. And so they could have easily dealt with this. Ellie was saying on my show today, even if you think that they needed this full deliberation period, you would imagine it would be one of the first cases that they resolve a couple months in, not save it to the absolutely last moment.
It's kind of the most important one, don't you think?
I mean, it seems pretty important whether the Republican nominee, but it does feel like they're running out the clock. Ellie had an interesting theory that this may be indicative of a negotiation that's going on, that it wasn't the slam dunk that Alito was hoping for. And so there's like negotiations going on, and they may be slow walking his dissent in some way.
For Alito to write his dissent, and then I think what did you say? Or Alito is like, "Oh, I'll have it for you on Monday," and then Monday comes around, and he's like, could you give me a little? I don't have it for you right now.
It was a tough weekend.
That's when you called for the meteor, or was it an asteroid? To come?
You know what? I'm agnostic as to what object comes from the sky and changes the dynamic on the court, frankly.
Okay, so this is an odd question, but go with me here. I mean, do you consider yourself a white boy?
I mean, I am white. I don't know if that's coming across the. I'm not quite sure. I'm still a boy, but.
I know, because if you had said that to me, I'd be, excuse me? Well, I wouldn't care, but the audience would be like, but it's Sam Seder. He called Don Lemon a boy. What's wrong with him?
No, I'm just old. I wouldn't mind being shaving off a couple of years, but yeah.
All right. So there's a method to my madness, because I had, folks who watched the show yesterday had Nina Turner on, and remember the video that I played is of a Trump, I would call it a rally at a so-called black church in Michigan. And I just want to play that video again. And then I'd like to play the video of the event that Donald Trump went to directly after that black church event. So get ready, everybody. It's quite something. So here it is. This is the church. Okay, so that's supposedly a black church. I mean,
I was going to say, that's a lot of white people in the pews for a black church.
When I saw that on Sunday, I put that out there and I was like, I grew up in the black church and, occasionally I don't go to church as much as I used to, but I still go to the black church. And I usually, if it's called a black church, usually the majority of the people you see, Majority Report man, are black people.
I have a good friend who was a minister in high school, and my experience of a black church is there's more black people.
I'm just saying. So one of the response from one of the trolls said, "Stop counting people. You're racist." And I'm like, you don't have to be racist for your own eyes. But obviously, look, he's courting the black vote. Obviously, I think that rally was set up like the Bronx rally, that they're busing people in, and therefore that's how you get all the white people there. This is where he went right after that event. Check it out, Sam.
Evil.
All right, that's enough of that. Okay, Sam, but why can't I think of his name? Turning Point.
Charlie Kirk.
Charlie Kirk. That was a Charlie Kirk event. Are you excited for White Boy Summer?
I mean, I haven't heard of the lists of benefits, but
that's why I asked if you were a white boy.
Do I have to wear one of those hats? I hope not.
Wasn't it a MAGA hat? It was red, right?
I think it was a red white boy summer hat, right? It was.
Right,
I mean, that's my guess. Is but yeah, I mean, look, the racism has been. It has always been a part, at least really in the past, I guess, 60 years of Republican politics, to one degree or another. And I think we're in an era where it is far more pronounced. I once heard a stat from, the book escapes me at the moment, but it wasn't until 2008 when 50% of non-college educated whites were aware that the Republican Party, or I should say the Democrats, were to the left of the Republican parties on race. In other words, the Republican Party used to be the party of Lincoln. It was the party that freed the slaves. And up until 2008,
right.
And you could see this in how long it took for state and local positions in a lot of the former Confederate states to go from Democratic to Republican, because the Democrats used to be the party of racists, the Dixiecrats in particular. And it wasn't until 2008, when Barack Obama was elected, that a huge cohort of these people became aware that the Republican Party was actually to the right of Democrats on race.
Yeah. So here's the thing. For those of you, I knew this. Big Dindy Piccolo in the chat who says, isn't White Boy Summer the name of Tom Hanks' son, Chet, rap song from a couple years ago? Indeed it is. I think it was the summer of 21, or maybe it was the summer of 23, I don't remember. But Chet Hanks officially declared it White Boy Summer, and he released, his rap single for White Boy Summer.
I am sad I missed that.
You missed that.
I missed that.
But listen, I think the racism really is the point, don't you think? Yesterday I had Nina Turner on. Last week I had Jamel Hill on. And I discussed how, in some polls, it is suggesting that Trump is poised to win perhaps 15 to 20% of the black vote in November. So here's my question. What about Trump's long and present history of vile racism? Why isn't it sinking in with some people? I mean, he was sued by the Nixon administration for refusing to rent apartments to black folks, to black tenants. He called for the deaths of the Central Park Five. He called African nations shithole countries. I mean, there's some stories have said that he was saying the N-word right on the set of The Apprentice. Why is a certain percentage of black and brown voters not hearing that, you believe?
I mean, I think
if you believe the polls.
Well, I think probably the amount of black and brown votes he's going to get is a little bit exaggerated, but it's definitely higher than it was for Mitt Romney probably, and certainly higher than one would think. But I do think that there is a significant cohort of people, black, brown, and white for that matter, who feel like, well, I mean, I think particularly in terms of black and brown people relative to that, I think they feel like it doesn't matter whether it's a overt racist like Donald Trump or maybe he was a little bit racist-y, Joe Biden or not. I think the bottom line is they're like, we're going to get screwed by the so-called non-racist candidate and maybe the racist candidate. And if we, shake things up, maybe that will make a difference. I mean, I think, I had some black friends who, on the day that Donald Trump, after he won.
Sam, you have black friends?
I have a couple. I mean, but it's more surprising that I have any friends, to be honest with you. But I think there was some who were like, it's not going to change anything.
Yeah.
It wouldn't change anything either way. And I think, there's a real challenge that the Democrats, and if you look at from a policy perspective, Joe Biden, and I'm putting aside, what I see happening in Gaza, but Joe Biden, at least relative to, I'm 57 years old, he's probably had the most progressive, the most progressive policies across the board of any first-term president that I've seen, maybe any president, Democratic president. But, arguably Johnson, I wasn't quite a sentient at that time, but and I think in terms of like material benefits has been fairly good, but I don't know that there's been any major structural changes that, people can see a material difference in what's going on. And also I think the media hasn't done a great job in communicating this to people.
Yeah. Yes, Rose Blake in the comments who says, I just realized that's Sam Seder. Yes, it is Sam Seder. Listen, can we take this poll down? I don't want the poll. Because what do you think of White Boy Summer? I don't want that poll. Let's take it down. I want to know just from people in the comments, why do you think it's not resonating? Why do you think it's not resonating, the racism from Donald Trump? Everyone says, it's very racist or whatever, the White Boy Summer. I get it. But why do you think this isn't resonating? Because, I had a guest on that's going to air later, and I talked about 50 Cent saying it's because of the RICO charges, right? And I think that's all bullshit. Eric Trump is saying it's because black people feel sort of a kinship because they've been wrongly accused in the justice system and they have cases against them. And I'm like, all of a sudden now Donald Trump is a victim when they talk about snowflakes. But having said that, this is Joe Biden. Let's play this sound. This is Joe Biden confronting Trump on his racism at a debate back in 2020, because I thought he actually did a pretty decent job of it. Here it is.
I am the least racist person. I can't even see the audience because it's so dark, but I don't care who's in the audience. I'm the least racist person in this room.
Okay, Vice President Biden, let me ask you very quickly, and then I have a follow-up question for you.
Abraham Lincoln here is one of the most racist presidents we've had in modern history. He pours fuel on every single racist fire. Every single one. Started off his campaign coming down the escalator saying he's going to get rid of those Mexican rapists. He's banned Muslims because they're Muslims. He has moved around and made everything worse across the board. He says about the poor boys, last time we were on stage here, he said, I told them to stand down and stand ready. Come on. This guy has a dog whistle about as big as a foghorn.
Look, it's tough to watch because, I mean, I don't know. Do you think Joe Biden can confront him like that in this next upcoming debate? Because I thought that was a really good job that he did there.
I mean, it's funny because I was trying to sort of stay on topic, but that's the only thing I could think too. It's like
we say it like it is here, Sam. Thank you.
I mean, honestly, I watched that and I wonder, like, we'll see. I mean, that said, I thought his State of the Union was actually really good. And so I found that surprising, but that was, 4 or 5 months ago. I don't know. I hope so. But I think just in terms of like the talking point that black people are going to appreciate Donald Trump more because he is a convicted felon now, aside from it being racist in and of itself, we have polling now. And the polling shows that in fact, no, black people, like white people, are less inclined to vote for a person to be president if they're a convicted felon. I mean,
34 counts, as a matter of fact. So you mentioned Charlie Kirk earlier, but let me just say this because, the other dimension of white boy summer that I want to talk about is how it seems that the GOP talking heads and the party bigwigs, they're luxuriating really in their bigotry, I believe. The GOP has been racist and sexist for decades. But from my point of view, they always tried to have sort of this air of respectability about it. They use dog whistles. Now Republican elites are just proudly hateful. And I just want to play, these are two recent comments from Charlie Kirk that you saw out there, brazenly with the White Boy Summer flag. He organized that White Summer event, and he's a close advisor to Donald Trump, and he has his unvarnished thoughts about both black and gay people. Let's play the sound bites, please.
And that's why I think this United story and the DEI story hits so hard, because we've all been in the back of a plane when the turbulence hits, or when you're flying through a storm and you're like, I'm so glad I saw the guy with the right stuff and the square jaw get into the cockpit before we took off, and I feel better now thinking about that.
No, I mean, like, you want to go thought crime? Like, I'm sorry, if I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified.
Well, that's the you wouldn't have done that. You wouldn't have done that before.
That's not an immediate.
No, you wouldn't have done that before.
That's not who I am. That's not what I believe.
It is the reality the left has created.
Yeah, and so it's very simple. So how do you love somebody? You love them so much to correct their error.
Yeah.
And so let's just, take the pride conversation out, because people think it's an identification, but it's not. It's just sexual behavior. But it's, if you meet an alcoholic or you meet a drug addict, do you affirm their struggle? No. You say, you're better than this. Let's get you free from that. Let's get you free from that activity.
I mean, there's so much to say. These guys are idiots.
Well,
they're idiots. I mean, is it crazy? Because this is how I feel. Republicans, they've gotten meaner, I believe. And not just meaner, but nakedly bigoted. If you think about, in the reality of the world, right? If you think about it, a black pilot is probably even more qualified because of the hoops and the shit that they had to jump through to get there. And the number of black pilots who are in the system they pale in comparison to the actual population and to the number of white pilots. So the planes they're not really falling out of the sky now, but the incidents that are happening, it's happening under white pilots, right?
Well, it's also a function of like mechanical failure that have nothing to do with pilots anyways. I mean, it's largely a Boeing problem.
And if you look at the Japan Air where the door fell off, there was a woman pilot who actually landed the plane safely and very calmly. And so you can't say that a woman is not qualified as well. I mean, it makes no sense.
No, it's absurd.
You remember my conversation with the person that I think you brought up before this interview, but go on.
Well, I've actually followed Charlie Kirk's career from almost the beginning, where he's, was the world's oldest college kid and had raised money from, some right-wing billionaire in Chicago to start Turning Points. And when he started, and probably as recently as just before Donald Trump, maybe even just shortly after that, Kirk was, realizing that he's having to deal with kids, was much better on race, much better on religion, and much better on gay people. In fact, he for a long time was dogged by the so-called Groypers, which is the Nick Fuentes wing of the Republican Party and conservative movement, where they would come and go to live events that he was at and confront him for not being anti-gay.
So is it a grift?
I think it's, yes. I mean, I do.
Is it
a
a Sam Rubin, not Sam Rubin, Dave Rubin grift?
I do think it is. I mean, I think Kirk is a little bit more intelligent, frankly, than Dave Rubin. But I definitely think that he is, and look, you see this, you've been in this industry, you've seen like corporations will do this. They will chase certain ideologies because they think that's where their viewers are going to come from. And that's what he's doing. And, Jack Posobiec is, was at one time such a marginal sort of like a bigot that he wasn't, you wouldn't see Charlie Kirk with him. But now, they're doing a show together because that's where the cash is. And so the entire party has moved in that direction because I think they find it both lucrative and electorally beneficial, particularly as we have more polarized sort of communities, right? Like, you don't appeal when you do a show like this or like Charlie Kirk's, you don't have to appeal to the people who don't believe in what you say. You got to appeal to sort of like this base that's going to fund you. And I think that's what he's doing.
Sam, do you think Trump will get 12% of the black vote, says Jean H. Pierre? But anyway, yes. And speaking of, by the way, before you answer that, where the money is, make sure you hit the thumbs up button because it helps the algorithm.
Yes, make sure you like.
And subscribe.
Yeah.
As you say at the end of your show, and we even do, what do you say, something about live every day for 2.5 hours or whatever. We do
like
live
that.
at 5 every day. So we only have, half of the people who are watching who've hit the thumbs up. So hit the thumbs up. I like that you called it for what it is because not many people will do that, Sam. They're afraid to do it. And I hear the right and the what do I call them? You call them the biz bros and I call them the business bros. We have the same terminology there, but you shortened it. They do it all the time and they have such an outsized voice, especially in streaming. And they get to a lot of folks and there's no editorial restraints or controls and they just spread a lot of misinformation. So say about that what you will.
Well, I mean, look, this is the era that we live in. I mean, I have no problem with sort of opinion journalism. And, there was an era, we've gone through different eras in terms of the media in this country. In terms of like having broadsheets that are reflective of political ideologies and then sort of like broad-based news, where Walter Cronkite, 1/3 of the country literally will form their opinions based upon what Cronkite does. I think, but I do think that younger people are more discerning in some respects and are a little bit more savvy in the way that they take in media. But there is a big industry on the right, and it just is. It's a big industry. There's a tremendous amount of money from right-wing billionaires that will go in and subsidize it. And this is something that I started in. I started doing my political commentary in AM talk radio, and it was clear in the aughts how that would work. Aside from Rush Limbaugh, everybody else had other sort of more political sources of subsidization. If you listen to Mark Levin, his ads were coming from the Heritage Foundation and from the Hillsdale College and all of these right-wing think tanks, which were using there was a synergy there. if you were, guys like Michael Medved. I don't know if you remember him, but he would do his radio show. But he also had a column on Town Hall on their website, and they would be subsidized, and that has happened in the online universe. And so, if you're the Daily Wire, you have the ability to drop $1 million in advertising in any given year on Facebook. I mean, you're doing this. That's extraordinary. But you can't.
Because
that's how you grow.
People are reticent to advertisers and sponsors to advertise and sponsor political or news
100%. Content,
right? But the folks on the right have no issue with it because that's the whole point, is to get that message out of there, and a lot of it is disinformation. This is a subject that you are very interested in and that you talk about. I want to talk about Benjamin Netanyahu, okay? Because I wonder if you happen to see this morning that Benjamin Netanyahu attacked Joe Biden. I know you discussed the war on Gaza with Emma earlier. So I want to take a listen to this. Is a video of Netanyahu that he posted at 10 a.m. Here it is.
When Secretary Blinken was recently here in Israel, we had a candid conversation. I said I deeply appreciated the support the U.S. has given Israel from the beginning of the war. But I also said something else. I said it's inconceivable that in the past few months, the administration has been withholding weapons and ammunition to Israel. Israel, America's closest ally, fighting for its life, fighting against Iran and our other common enemies. Secretary Blinken assured me that the administration is working day and night to remove these bottlenecks. I certainly hope that's the case. It should be the case. During World War II, Churchill told the United States, "Give us the tools, we'll do the job." And I say, give us the tools and we'll finish the job a lot faster.
I know you don't really have much to say about this. I'm just kidding. But I mean, my liberal friends, Sam, were shocked by this news when they saw it, and they couldn't believe that Netanyahu, as they say, would bite the hand that feeds him, so to speak. But my more progressive friends were not surprised at this at all. They told me that they never believed Netanyahu was a friend to Biden and that a move like this was inevitable. They say Biden and Jake Sullivan and company were wrong to think that that by reserving any criticism for Netanyahu, that they could perhaps exert more control over him. What do you think?
Well, I mean, it has been clear for a long time that Netanyahu wants Donald Trump to be president. I mean, that I think has been pretty clear. And I don't think the Biden administration, for them, that it's terribly relevant. I think, look, Chuck Schumer came out and said that Netanyahu's got to go. He said that 2 or 3 months ago, and now turns around and invites him back, to speak in front of Congress. And I think the Biden administration had said something similar. I think this really has very little to do with Biden. If anything, I think the White House probably welcomes something like this because it makes it seem like they've actually been withholding of weaponry to Israel because they're trying to, it's the same reason. Let's put it this way. We have had story after story leaked about how Joe Biden is so angry with Netanyahu. For months and months and months, this has been going on, but yet has not done anything to exercise any leverage the U.S. might have. The idea that we've withheld weapons to Israel, it's possible that we stopped sending them 2,000-pound bombs because it was such a flagrant violation of the Leahy Act to use those bombs in close quarters. We have our own military personnel coming out and saying there's no excuse to use those size bombs. So I think this is more about Netanyahu trying to pressure the administration on some level. I think, though, that from the administration's perspective, it may help them, in terms of trying to argue, look, we've upset Netanyahu. But I also think part of this is about some of these primaries, to be honest with you. Look, AIPAC is spending almost $20 million to get rid of Jamal Bowman. These type of things, that Netanyahu puts out is helpful to them. And it's also a distraction for Netanyahu, I think. This is for our benefit. He would have done it in Hebrew if it was for domestic consumption.
I was, look, I guess it's fair to say I was surprised but not surprised that he actually did it. I don't know if that makes
I
sense.
just don't think that Biden is terribly, they don't seem to care, right? I mean, Netanyahu has not been in any way, shown any type of loyalty to Joe Biden ever. I think there's very little that Netanyahu can do to shake the ideological position that Joe Biden has about Zionism. And I would say the position that he has that somehow this could have been good politics for him.
If Biden loses in November, do you think Gaza is going to will be a big reason why? A small reason? I don't know.
Well, I don't think there has to be a big reason, right? Because this is going to be a very tight election. So I think there's going to be, if Biden loses, I think there's going to be a number of things. I think it's going to be, I think that the Gaza stuff is going to hurt a lot more than people think it does. I think it hurts, again, it hurts because, and I've talked to, leaders of progressive groups who are utterly demoralized by this. And these are the people who are your troops on the ground to get people to go out and vote. Like, we talk about Biden's doing much better with high propensity, high information voters. But the people who get the low information voters out, the low propensity voters out, are the activists. And when they're demoralized, it hurts your ground game. Mm-hmm. And I also think that it hurts with black and brown folk because this is seen as a supremacy issue and that Palestinians are being dehumanized. And then I would also say, from my perspective, there was a huge, just as an example, a massive thing that Biden did, far more important than the Willow Project, far more important than the Keystone Pipeline, to deal with climate change that got almost no traction. And I mean, do you know what it is?
No.
I mean, nobody does, because the war in Gaza completely dominates the news. But he held up permitting for liquid natural gas export facilities, so they could not be built. Bill McKibben, one of the foremost sort of climate activists in the country, was on my show in early February, preparing to go down and get arrested with about another dozen or 2 dozen people. He started multiple climate change organizations. And Biden did this. And McKibben was like, this is the single largest rebuke to the fossil fuel industry that an American president has ever made. And it got virtually no traction because of the story of Israel and Gaza and the controversy around Biden enabling this. And so it works both in terms of demoralizing the activists that we need to get the vote out for Biden. And again, we're talking, this election could come down to 10,000 votes in Michigan, or 10,000 in Pennsylvania, 10,000 in Wisconsin. And you demoralize the people who are supposed to get out the vote. You alienate and depress some of the black and brown vote, and you don't get an opportunity to promote the good things that you've done. And these add up to sort of like the small margins that can make a difference.
So 2 things. Do you ever talk pop culture?
I am so ignorant when it comes to pop culture that people in my own personal life think that there's something fundamentally wrong with me.
Okay.
But
so,
I might, there's an off chance.
Okay, so I wake up this morning and there are people sending me texts saying, "Oh my gosh, can you believe this happened?" I'm like, "What? Don't you live in Sag Harbor?" I said, "Yes." Justin Timberlake has been arrested for DUI and is at the police station around the corner from my house.
Wow, I did see a picture of that, and I do know who he is. He was a teen, like a heartthrob singer, right?
Yeah.
Well, the only comment I saw on somebody on Twitter was like, because there's a picture of him sort of walking sort of a perp walk. And it sort of feels like, and I only know this because my daughter was of the age at that time, when Justin Bieber got in trouble. And it was like almost like somebody recreating their image.
Justin Timberlake.
Oh, no, but back in the day.
Justin Bieber. This is when he peed in the bucket or something?
Something. I knew there was some controversy. And I think, like, you know, in show business, sometimes people try and revive their careers by playing the bad boy in certain instances. I don't know, but I have no idea.
So?
I mean, I got to think there's a lot of people in Sag Harbor who are drinking and driving, is my sense. I don't go out there very much, to be honest with you, but that was always my sense.
You're a smart man, because someone actually, you know, posed a question and said, well, he has a new album coming out, and don't you think this is actually really good publicity? He may think it's bad at this point.
I didn't know he had a new album.
But he's a new album that debuts soon, and I think he was supposed to debut it in Chicago or something like that. Look, when anybody gets in trouble, I just feel terrible, but it was so close to me that I had to ask you about it, because people were saying, can you go over to the jail? Can you get us a picture? Can you get us some information? I said, no, it's not what I do. I'm not doing it. But I'll tell you what I do. And because my producers reminded me of this, and also, you know, I'm friends with Darren Star. And so.
Oh, boy. Oh, geez. I know where this is going.
You were on an episode of Sex and the City. And so I have to ask you, I can't remember. I remember you on the episode, but I don't remember exactly what you did. But I just want to know, personality-wise, are you a Carrie, a Samantha, a Charlotte, or a Miranda?
I mean,
Are you Mr. Big? Or were you Mr. Little?
Oh, no. I have some actually funny stories about Chris Noth. But
well, you can share.
Well, I was shooting I was in a low-budget independent movie. I had one scene with him, and it was actually in Prospect Park. And the director wanted me to sort of like improv the question. I was playing like a entertainment reporter, and it was like, you know, on the set type of thing. And I started going off script because the director had asked me to do it, and he got very upset. And then at one point, and I was like, all right, I don't care. But you're on a low budget movie. People feel like there's some camaraderie, and we're in Prospect Park, and something happened with the weather. So the planes going to probably LaGuardia were coming across the park, and he just started yelling, "Can't you do something about this?" And everybody's like, what? Like, we're going to reroute the air. I mean, and everybody was just waiting for it to be a joke, and it wasn't. So, but I haven't watched enough Sex and the City to know. But I like Miranda because I like, that was the scene I had. And Cynthia Nixon, I think, is a hero in my mind for her run against Cuomo.
Were you a love interest of?
No, I was a buddy who was a comedy writer and had moved to LA, and she saw me, and apparently I'd lost a lot of weight because I had an eating disorder. I would chew my steak and spit it out.
Right. I forgot about that. Okay, you were the weirdo. I'm just going to say, because people are talking about you on the thing here. But once Bernie C says, I sent you an X, meaning me, asking if you were drinking with him. No, I was not. Boo Boo Romero says, Sex in the City. Yes, Sam was on Sex in the City. So did Kyoko. Asked the same question. Here's the thing. Let's see. Someone says George Hahn. Hamilton says George Hahn was on Sex in the City as well. Let's see. Someone had a question in here that I wanted to ask you about. Oh, I think I'm more of a Carrie on Sex in the City. Oh, here's the one. Gino Maynard says Sam is Hugo on Bob's Burger.
That is true as well.
Okay. That's it, Sam.
Yep. There you go.
We went off the rails. Sam, you're a great guest.
Oh, well, thank you, John. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're a great host.
I hope that we talked about everything, but you didn't tell me, are you a Carrie, a Samantha, Charlotte, or Miranda?
I'm just going with Miranda because I
Okay.
really don't know. But
All right.
I'm a big fan of Cynthia Nixon. So.
Yeah, you did say that part. Sam, thank you.
Thank you,
I
John.
appreciate
Really
it.
appreciate it. It was a lot
you
of fun.
You can hang up now. No, you say bye. No, you hang up.
I don't
No,
know
you
how to hang up. Oh, wait. Oh, here we go.
No, you hang
So,
up. That was Sam Seder, the host of the Majority Report. Sam's a good guy for coming on today. So I've read some of your comments. I'm so glad. You can see we're back in our studio. I was out for the summer for a while doing stuff from my home, but we're back in the studio. We'll try to get back in more. The show feels really good here. Please, as Nappy Child says, like and subscribe. Now, I'm not sure. You guys do the counting for me as you always do. How many thumbs up do we have? Because we had a lot of people watching us today, and I don't even know if we have, half of the thumbs up that we need because it affects the algorithm. And also, Michelle V says, Project 2025, Don, we are and we will talk about it. We do talk about it in the questions, maybe not as often as we should, but trust me, we will. Slick microphone you got there, says Dan Sebo. Thank you. It is vintage. On our first day rehearsing in the studio, one of the set designers said, it would be great. You should put like an old-fashioned mic there. And it actually does work, but we have it unplugged. But this mic does work. And we have it unplugged because you'd see the cord and all of that stuff. But it does work, and I'm not close enough to use it. But maybe we'll do it. So thank you very much. Never Watched the Show says UASWPHD. Well, you're watching now, and I'm glad. Make sure you hit the thumbs up. Let's do a series on Project 2025, says Winky Campbell. Okay, great. We will do that. Thank you. Great conversation, says Cheryl Gibson. Cheryl, I appreciate that. Stacy Jackson says, I love your studio. It looks nice, Don. It's very professionally done. As you are anyway, you are a professional. Thank you very much. Listen, you guys have to tell me. Thank you, Don. Please do MR talk to Bradley or Matt Leck. Anyway, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what that is. Studio, and you guys, Jane F loves it. Let me know if you guys like the studio or if you like at home or a combination or whatever. But anyway, they're both available. And for the Live at 5 especially, we try to do it at home because you guys said you liked it. You liked the casual comfort of it. And so I've been trying to do it at home, but maybe I should do it in the studio. Haya Truth says 901 thumbs up. We can do better than that, guys. Make sure you hit the like and make sure you subscribe. Remember, as I said, by July 1st, we're trying to get to 200,000 subscribers. That would be great for us. So thank you. Will Butte Jr. says both. Love the puppies. The puppies are not in the studio, but we'll bring it in. The studio looks great, John, says Gia M-A-R. I like the combo, says Ziggy. Nina Simone says Don. I don't know. It didn't say anything. Talk about Cop City, says the Jack. If you guys have questions, you can. In Dungu, Kamu says Sam Seder was a great addition to the show. I agree. Please do in-depth on JFK Jr. Did you mean RFK Jr. when you said that? The thing got ahead of me, so it just sort of jumped up. Maybe you meant RFK Jr. What's your favorite episode setting? It's in the comments, okay, guys, before we let you go. The fancy studio, or Don's New York City apartment, or my house in, I guess I already said, in Sag Harbor, okay? So what is your favorite episode setting? Make sure you vote. And I'm going to give you a second. The studio is old school. Looks great, says Pedro Dixon Queenan. Studio looks good. I also like it home. 922 now. That's what we have. I love the living room with the rotating TV, Jennifer Lynn. Jennifer, one of my friends who is a show business person said they didn't like the living room with the TV because they thought it was distracting. So I went to a different spot in the house. And so, maybe they're wrong. Beth H, 926. I mean, we can get to 1,000. If we can get to 1,000 thumbs up, it would be great. I like the home better, says Alberto Everett. Have you guys been following the news today? Love the studio, says Candace Carrington. Have you guys been following the news today? That was the talk of the town and the internet, was this Justin Timberlake thing. And Sam Seder brings up a good point. He's probably not the only person drinking and driving, and it should not happen. But it's always very surprising to me, especially when celebrities, knock wood, everybody has like a beer or something once or a glass of wine when they're coming home from dinner and they get behind the wheel, and that's different than actually being under the influence or driving while intoxicated. But for the grace of God go I, but bad things happen when people drink. I'm always surprised when a celebrity or someone, a public figure, drives after they've been drinking, especially with the advent of ride shares or Uber and Lyft, et cetera, even with the all the taxis that are in New York City. I'm always surprised when that happens. And even in LA now, before Uber and Lyft, a lot of celebrities would get caught getting DUIs in Los Angeles and California. And okay, fine. Everyone would say, you have enough money, you should have a driver or a limo. But now you don't even have to have, you don't have to be really rich or wealthy in order to get an Uber to come get you. So it's always very surprising when that happens. 928, you say. So are you guys surprised by that? Let's see, hold on. Over 1,000 watching and only 81 thumbs up. Well, depends on this. Probably they don't show up until after the algorithm. So we got close. Guys, thank you. In the polling, it says, what's your favorite episode setting? Fancy Studio, 38%. Don's New York City apartment, 37%. And my house, 25%. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. 968. What happened? Justin Timberlake's new album was released in March of 2024. Sorry. Tour starts Friday in Chicago. No excuse for DUI behavior, says Chicken Milk. I got it wrong. Sorry, I apologize. The album is out. I meant the touring. I knew something started in Chicago. It's not the album, it's the tour. I like the home, says Spring 20E. More relaxed look, not the stiff setting. I think mix it up, Don. Okay, guys, you're the best. I appreciate you helping us to build this community, the Lemon Nation, your lemon heads. So again, make sure you like and subscribe, hit the thumbs up button, and make sure you tune in. We have an episode up now today that is Tara Setmeyer talking about her new initiative and talking about all the news that's out in the zeitgeist. So make sure you tune into that. And I'll see you tomorrow on Lemon Live at 5. Let's see if I'm at the studio or I'm at home. And you won't know unless you tune in. See you tomorrow.